So, hello everyone, and welcome to our little fun, I needed to read, After Hours Storyteller Spotlight with me, Manon, Bill, Kevin, and I believe we have a surprise person that's going to be roasted. I'm not going to say the name yet, but I will leave it.
Just called on.
Okay, sorry. We won't put you on the hot plate then. I have to change the date in the bottom. We're in March. There we go. Let's keep on going. The last time we had that meeting, I was alone for a while. So if you saw the video that I uploaded, let me know if you did have a bit of laugh about the start of that video during I was waiting for Bill and Kevin to show up. If you haven't seen it, it's something to look at on the YouTube. So my nice colleague over here is William Alan Webb, as you know. We've seen his web page many times before. What I didn't receive from Bill this time is, do you have any new books going on in the last month that I don't know about?
Not in the last month, no. I had put off the next one for a little while, and it'll be coming out fairly shortly, but not anything in the last month.
Okay.
How long ago was the anthology, Bill?
It was about a month. She's
Okay.
got a copy up. She's got a picture of it there. And then the next one, we had to put off a little while.
Yeah. So next time you have a books on the pre-sale, send me it so I can actually put it up on the slide. What about you? Our second one here, the second winner is Kevin. So how's Kevin doing inside his book publishing? Anything new?
Well, I got 115,000 words on the next novel, so now I got to go in and edit, shift around, and do some things. So I'll be announcing that date soon, but no date just yet.
All right, don't forget to send me a link to anything that I can put up on our for the next month.
Okay.
And then me, your favorite little meditating author, that's me, Manon. These are my past book, and for me, I do have new books going on. So this one just published as of today, and these two are in pre-order. So, and that one is for people who like to write nonfiction books. I have a series of 14 books called The Vault, and they all having different niche from Amazon with sub niches and idea on how or what you would like to write about that niche. That is actually what we call a topic that you can expand and write about, and having a good book to go on Amazon. So same thing for the book of essential oil. I'm a meditating person, but I'm also very much on the I don't like doctors. So I really like to have on the healthy side of everything. So essential oil, I'm using those for over 14 years. I have nurses calling me and asking me details on what they can do when they cannot help anymore in other side of the medical. And yeah, I'm very deep inside that, and I love it. I don't buy soap at the store, or shampoo, or toothpaste, or perfume. Everything is done at home here. So, and a lot of things coming up on that. I've been called from a little store to actually make soap for them, and a few surprise which coming up because I'm going to mix my knowledge of this with my books for children. That's going to be fun. That's something I'm going to keep you on appraised for the future of what's going to happen on that. All right. So that's us. Anyone, because you know that we love doing book cover and storming images for you guys. So as always, it's always fun to do a book cover and discuss and brainstorm for you and hear what we need.
I'm going to let Kevin start on the comments. I'll be right back, about 30 seconds.
So if you want your book cover, you have a book you're working on and you need a spark, and often enough, an author needs a picture to spark an idea for their books. So that would be nice to have a title. If you don't have the title right away, that's okay. You can give us a synopsis, the name that you want to see on top of the book, image that you would like to see on top of the book on your cover, and a short description to inspire the design. You can send that into Discord. You can find me under Fireheart or Anderson Publisher. My email is maryandersonpublisher@gmail.com or Gmail. No, that's gmail.com. There's no Gmail on that one. All right. Easy back. So I was ready in case someone doesn't show up. I already had a lot of information to pass along about book writing. Today I was asking ChatGPT what's the mainstream trends for writer teacher in 2025. The teacher is writer should be there. And how to work with the AI in books. And I like the answer that is giving me. Says the AI has a learning partner, Sudowrite, ChatGPT, Grammarly Go, and similar tools are being used to teach writing mechanic, story structure, and creative flow. So it's kind of interesting to see that Sudowrite is getting in a lot of answer from ChatGPT lately. Anyone else saw that? And if they question ChatGPT about writing AI workflow? Oh,
They're quiet today.
they are quiet. Yeah. So student learn how to collaborate with the AI. So you know very well that everyone on Sudowrite, we're teaching to work with the AI, ChatGPT, Claude, all those models we're using inside Sudowrite. Next, as a teacher, you're not just a teacher, you're writing, you're teaching. I guess I put my whole question in there. So the project-based learning. Writers love working towards a tangible goal, a published book, a finished short story, a blog series. So this is all kind of things also that you can work with on this session and ask our Bill and a few other people here that publish books. The blog, a blog series, how that work? If you do a short story from your main big book, to put a short story and do advertisement with that. Blog series for your advertisement and talking to your fans. On that, Kevin, how do you work with these, that kind of item here for your fan?
Um, as far as working towards a tangible, it depends on what you're doing. If you're just starting out and you have several different ideas, several different thoughts, you literally can go into say chat and just, ask it to make heads or tails of it, to give you a rough outline. And then once you see a rough outline, you can tweak it and say, no, I want this, I don't want that. I was thinking this, and keep going with that. And with that, that helps you get towards a published book or a short story even, because a short story is it's a whole nother skill than writing a novel, because you can't have three or four plots that you tie in together later on in the book. Usually you just got one main plot. And if you have a rough idea, you can build an outline, you can knock out a short story in no time.
Mm-hmm. True. Also ask what is very popular lately, and he says that a lot of memoir and children book are taking off lately very, very, very strongly. Story collections are also on high demand. So that's why, because that's what I'm teaching this week. And you all know that I'm writing children books, and that the children books are becoming a story collection of 52 books. So somehow these three things that I'm working on, they are in high demand.
I see a question that Gene had.
Yeah.
I wonder how you share short stories from a full book without sharing the ending. Usually, and for me, a short story is within that same world that book is, or with some of the same characters, but it's not pulling something from that book to be the story. So it's usually, addendum or just goes along beside it and that kind of thing.
Yeah. To,
Um,
to build on what Kevin just said, I have a book in the Four Horsemen universe that has four short stories written about the same characters, and all the stories happen around the book,
Mhm.
like in the same timeline and all that, but they don't, and they reference things that happened in the book, but they're not part of the book.
Because if you self-publish that, you can run into some problems with, with Amazon or whatever. You can only publish a certain percentage of what's already been published, kind of a thing. And so you don't want to grab part of your book and then make it another. I mean, it can get complicated, and you also don't want to give away your story. You don't want to give the ending. So
Because I know I have one of my book for children, which is it's basically becoming a chapter books, but the short story is inside that series of 52 books. I just took one and just went to town one night. You know, when you go in that rabbit hole and you decide to get that one plot into 5 or 6 plot into a bigger book. So one of my story is actually uh, much bigger than the original one. And that's not published yet, but the first book with the small story in it, it's already published on KDP and Amazon. So what do you mean by that? You can be in trouble if my little story is already on Amazon, but I'm going to publish the bigger one. Is that a problem with that?
it's percentages. It's like up to 10%. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So let's just say you finish a novel and you want to stick some of the next novel in the back of the first novel. You can't stick 3 or 4 chapters in there to lure them into the next book, because then when you reprint the second book, you've got too much already out there. So it really just depends on how much you do. They don't want you publishing the same thing over and over. Basically, what it
And
boils down to.
yeah, when you see a book that has part of the next book in it, generally it's only going to be 3 or 4 pages, maybe a chapter. But that Kevin's right. That's because you don't want Amazon to get wind of it, and Amazon shuts down accounts for less reasons than that, and you don't want to give them any reason to look at your book sideways.
Right. Now, you can take a short story that you had published and put that short story in a novel with 6 other short stories, and now you have a book of short stories. That's different than just republishing something and not, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
They will ask you if there's any question. They may ask you for a reversion letter,
yeah.
which is a letter from the publisher who may have done an anthology or something, saying, "Hey, you've got your rights back."
And we have talked to writers that literally had to write a reversion letter to themselves because they were the publisher to begin with.
Yeah.
It has happened.
Well, it happened to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
See?
I had one of my World War II books I got in nonfiction. I got the rights back to it, and the book had been out for a long time with a different cover. And when I uploaded the new cover, they wanted to see the reversion letter. And of course, I went to them and said, "Wait a minute, it's already been out for quite a while." And they said, "Yeah, but we want to see the reversion letter." Then they wanted to see a reversion letter on a book, one of them that had never been published before. And so I actually had to write myself a reversion letter.
Interesting.
No, crazy, but you know, that's the world we live in now.
Wow. Okay. All right. So that's another, there's so much things to learn in the publishing world and writing our own book. It's always a loopy loop. Okay. Feedback, peer feedback. We know that's important to have feedbacks. How important is it to have our feedback on our books? We know that Amazon feedbacks and keywords are extremely important, but it's very, very complicated. How do you deal with that?
Now, you talking about like reviews and things?
Reviews and things. So we see that there is all kind of review on books on other writer. So there is a lot of Facebook place where you can actually says my book is on sale or it's free on KDP or on Amazon Kindle. Please go
Right.
in and write a feedback for me and all that stuff. I think Discord is coming in. I didn't find any of them on Discord yet. I'm sure it's there. Private forum, there's a few of those. There's some that you can pay and people go read your book and leave feedbacks.
Mhm.
So how do you two work with that?
Kevin, you want to take it?
Yeah, I avoid that type of thing. Like, I'm not going to pay anybody to go read my book, and I'm not going to ask them specifically, hey, give me a review. Because if you get caught doing that, they'll snatch your book down. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? You can't otherwise, If I was a man of means and had a patent somewhere and had a bunch of money in the bank, I could write a book that's terrible and pay 600 people to write a review. And all of a sudden the dang, the whole algorithm is thinking I got a great book. That wouldn't be right. So
True.
that whole, yeah, you want to steer clear of that. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Now you can say, hey, I'd like you to read my book. And if you feel like writing a review, please do. And if you don't, I understand. Thanks. But it can't be a condition. It can't be quid pro quo with that.
No, it can't. And there are services out there that say, we'll get your book in front of how many readers do you want to get it? For $2,500, we'll send it to 2,000 people or whatever. Well, that's BS because if you get caught doing that, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, they'll snatch you right on out of there and
They
they'll
will.
ban you.
Yep. And it goes back to also be careful what you wish for. I've got a guy right now on one of my series who, for whatever reason, does not like me, and so he's gone through and left a 1-star review on every book in the series.
Hmm.
And review, not a rating or a review. So he's gets on there and he basically says the same thing. I looked it up, and he says the same thing about every book he reviews from me or anybody else. And Amazon's not going to do anything about it. Fortunately, with me, he gave me what he thought was a criticism, which is one of the best marketing lines I've heard in a while. So I'm going to figure out how to use it. He meant it as being derogatory, and I'm like, no, dude, my audience is going to love that.
And here's the thing. Now, I don't know. I can't say for sure, but there are people that go out and give terrible reviews and they'll message, hey, I'll change my review for X amount.
Yep.
Or they wait to get messaged and then they say, yeah, I could be persuaded to change my review.
Yeah.
Which is, that's some shyster stuff going on, but it happens.
Blackmailing.
Yes.
Pretty
For
much.
lack of a better term, absolutely.
Which is why, even if it's bad, you may want to run them over with your car, but you just ignore it.
Yeah, you just ignore it.
That's great.
And here's the other thing. Speaking of ignoring, some people may give you a decent review. They may give you a 3, may give you a 4, whatever they give you. And they say, but I'd like this to be done instead in a story. Or I wish he wrote this way. I'm not going to change everything I write for one person that gave me a suggestion when there's, 15,000 that didn't say that. So be careful jumping just because you read one review that says you should do this. You guys don't fall into that trap.
Right. Yeah, it's very true. Reviews are a tricky thing, and none of us like getting bad reviews. But I'm going to read you a review right now. I'm looking up The Hobbit right now, and The Hobbit has 1-star reviews. Very slow paced and confusing. I mean, they're saying this about one of the greatest books ever written as far as what most people think of.
Yeah, fantasy books. Yeah. I mean, arguably one of the top 5 fantasy books ever or whatever,
Yes. And
wow.
so everything is going to get a bad review. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a book about kittens, and it's going to get a bad review because
I like dogs.
So miserable that they're going to take it out on you.
And in the community, the group of friends that we have, we call it the drive-by 1-star.
Yep.
Because a book can come out and then all of a sudden there's a 1-star review and you're going, wait a minute, this book's been out an hour and 15 minutes. They read that entire book? Huh.
And then if you go on Goodreads, there's books that have not yet come out.
They got,
that have, there's one book by someone we both know that had a whole bunch of 1-star reviews before he had finished writing it.
Yes.
But that possible.
Drive-by 1-stars. People don't like certain people. And unfortunately, I'm gonna go ahead and say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna put it out there, Bill.
Okay.
There are writers who 1-star everybody else trying to make themselves look better.
Oh, there absolutely are.
There are. I'm not kidding you. I'm not joking. I'm not just saying that. They're out there.
Yeah, I've caught several of them.
Yes.
And a lot of them are jealous or, angry. Maybe you said something at a con and they took it the wrong way.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Or he had a book that's starting to do well and your book came out last year at the same time and you jumped them in the
And I tell you
standings,
another
and
thing is a lot of times people get really angry about this, where maybe their book is number 2 or 3 in the new releases, the hot new releases, but your book is in front of theirs, and they
yeah.
can't get past you to get that number 1 tag,
Mm.
and they take it very personally. I mean, I'm not trying to be negative about this, but those people are out there.
So so basically what we're saying is, yes, look at your reviews. That's fine. Read your reviews, but don't let it be the end all be all. You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't let it be the end
And
all be all.
and as John Creason said, if your beta readers tell you something, well, alpha, beta, or even if your reviews consistently say this is wrong with this book, then you really do need to pay attention.
Right. But not the one-offs.
No, not the one-offs.
Yeah. So
Now, how would you tell someone to or help them to build a reader list? It's something which is getting harder and harder is people don't want to put money into like those MailChimp and what they call it, the MailChimp, is that it?
Well, there's
yeah.
MailChimp, there's MailerLite,
There's
uh,
about 6 or 7 of
MailerLite.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah, MailerLite. There's a couple ways you can build your mailing list. You can put a short story on your website that says join my mailing list and get my short story free. And there's some automated widgets you can stick on there if you're doing it yourself or if somebody does it for you.
Mm-hmm,
Like, say you have a GoDaddy website, there's some widgets out there that'll do that. And
mm-hmm.
they'll click on it to get your free short story and they join your mailing list. And then when you have something coming out or once a month, you're just saying, hey, you can grow your mailing list like that. And you could do that yourself. Um, you can do swaps with other authors,
Yeah.
you know, and their mailing list sees your book and vice versa and that kind of thing to grow it.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, talking about that, to get people to your website when you have a website for your book, how would you get people to get to your website if you don't have a mailing list?
well, unfortunately, that may take a few dollars. You could do something as simple as a Facebook ad with $25 where you're doing $5 a day for 5 days and said, hey, free short story and the link. And they go to your website and they get the free short story and they join your mailing list. And with $25 at just $5 a day, you could show it to a couple thousand people. That doesn't mean everybody's going to do it. But out of those couple thousand people, how many want a free short story?
Yeah,
So
it's there's a whole bunch of services like that and everything, and it's all pay. I mean,
to
and
begin
there's
with,
a learning curve to everything.
sure.
You can hire services to do this, but one of the cautions I'm going to tell newer writers now, if you're a writer who needs their time more than they need their money, then that's fine. But if you're a writer who hasn't yet, is hoping the writing will pay for all of this, you really do need to watch your expenses.
Right.
And
You,
I was just going to say, hiring a service to do it for you, A, is going to be a lot more expensive, but B, it also doesn't teach you how to do it, so you know whether they're actually doing something for the money you're paying.
right. Unless it's a service by somebody you trust is using.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, you can make sure you put your website in your bio on Amazon where you have something published. So anybody that looks at your bio and looks at your picture can say, oh, he's got a website with a free short story. You know what I mean? You can put that in your bio.
Yeah.
You can also put that in your books.
Yes. And put it in your book.
Oh, yeah, in the book, definitely.
Yeah. With your link. Hey, get a free short story.
And
Yeah.
if you have, sorry,
If you have a free short story, don't put it on Amazon for sale.
So no, don't.
Yeah.
Or
Be wide with it.
you can put it on Amazon for sale.
Yeah.
Don't put it in Kindle Unlimited.
Right. It has to be wide. Yeah.
And if you put it on Amazon for sale and it has a price on it, $2.99 or something, well, now you're actually giving something of value.
Right.
So there is a strategy there. Just remember to not put it in Kindle Unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
So, what Bill was talking about a service, I use a service nowadays. I have somebody that does it for me. I send him an email with my newsletter. With that email, he puts it together, puts the pictures in it, puts any links that I'd like to have in it. And then there's also a service he uses with other people to swap emails and to do swaps and put me in promotions, my free short stories. And there'll be a whole promotion that goes out with 20 authors saying, here's our free short story. and people click on that and they go to my website and they sign up for my newsletter. In March so far, I've got 70 subscribers. In February, I picked up 94. So, and that's using that service, and subscribers continue to grow.
Yeah.
And then I cull my subscriber list every few months, because people that don't click anything other than they just wanted the short story originally, I'll cull the list.
Yeah. Yeah. Building your mailing list and building your readership, boy, that's a whole course in itself, not just a class. That's a whole course in itself.
Yeah, it is. So what we were talking about there is often also if you have the right program to put your book together, like Vellum or Atticus, they have section especially for that, which is built in, which tell exactly where to find you inside the book. It's no matter which one it is, that's the hardcover, the paperback, or the ebook, it's already included inside the program. So
And what I do is, if it's an ebook, the ebook version, I put in a link, and because you can click a link right out of your Kindle.
yeah.
And if it's a print, I put in a QR code.
Yeah, that's very popular too. Or even put a page inside your book. Sometimes it's like towards the front or after the first chapter, and you can put a page. Hey, by the way, that would be nice if you take 2 minutes and go put a feedback if you like my book, with a QR code, so they don't have to type anything or the link to get directly to your feedback page.
Absolutely, yeah, sure.
Cool. All right, let's go forward a bit on that. John, Preston, I know you're working on that. The children writing books is booming lately. Parents are looking for books. Teacher, caregiver are seeking value-driven story. There is a big renewal in interest in writing children books to educate and inspire. Did you publish any of your book lately for children?
No, I haven't published anything, and I need to do that. I'm just not sure where to start. Nancy was really pushing towards uh, Substack. Manon has a good. You've had good luck with Medium.
Yes.
I'm not sure where to go yet. You've done stuff in Kindle, and I haven't put any children's stuff up in Kindle yet.
So I would suggest to do the same thing, but just get the right program to put all those big image. And I know we have other people, they're not with us tonight, but we have other authors that are very, very, very popular. And one of them is a she, and starting to actually do a lot of those books. She sent me some of the work she did, and it's whoa.
Wow.
It's very, very nice. And John, do you want to tell about your plugin you made?
So I have a plugin that's specific for creating scripts for kids' books, for picture books. It creates a story that's 24 pages long, and it creates a description for each page. And it has in each description a little story Bible for the characters, so they all retain some sort of consistency. It's supposed to help with that. But let me see if I can find the plugin and I can share a link to it.
Thank you, John. So I want you to know that John is writing very, very nice little story for children, and I'm going to be pushing him to start publishing them too. Next, any questions so far? Because I'm going to probably pass the baton to William and Kevin and their special invitee, because they had a really, really, really big weekend. So if you have any question, put it in the chat. Raise your hands. We're going to answer you at the same time. Until then, John's going to also put his link inside the chat.
Gene had a question about
Is the best image hard tool to creating a consistency character for children books.
Yeah. So there's a number of them out there, Gene. Kevin and I both use Clip Studio Paint, but that's not one that will do the faces for you. What you can do is when you get your images more or less right, even if it's the wrong face, then you could go to something like, for example, Based Labs AI and use their face swap program. And if it's not perfect, you could then take that back into an art program and touch it up if you need to.
And open art has models essentially that you can create of your characters.
Yeah.
These are good for creating animation as well. You can create scenes and stuff that did work with that.
And Midjourney now has where you can put in style and give it a weight factor so that
Yep.
it will create images that look very much like, the one that you are using as your model.
And Midjourney has a thing that in Discord you can use where essentially you create like a shortcut for your character's description, which has access to all like 6 images of the same character as character reference.
Yep.
And so you can call that character into the scene with the dash dash character name, and it pulls all of that information about that character into your Midjourney image.
And the great thing about learning any of this stuff is that it's only getting better and better. And once you've learned it, then anything new may require you to tweak your knowledge, but it's going to be essentially the same thing. Yeah. James posted a whole bunch of them for face swapping on YouTube. And you're going to need, just keep in mind that always with AI, you're always going to need some sort of human intervention.
All right, tell us about that beautiful weekend of yours and how that worked.
Well, I'll start it off and then I'll let Kevin kind of take over. Kevin and I have actually done, since we were in the last class, we've done, let's see, I've done, I think 4 cons, and Kevin, you've done Confinement and Mid-South Con. Is that right?
Well, Canuga, Confinement, and Miss South Gone. Yeah,
That's
Tupelo
right.
got canceled on us.
Yeah. I can't remember if we talked about Conuga when we were here before. I don't think we did.
Right, right.
Well, you go ahead and talk about Conuga then.
Yeah, Conuga was pretty good. It's in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it's a big pop culture convention, and it's huge. They use the entire convention center, and a lot of times they split that convention center on weekends. So it was a big crowd, a lot of people coming through. Did pretty well, selling books. They had an author alley there. But the person that did the best and sold a lot of books
Lot.
was romance. How you say it, Bill? Romanticy?
Romanticy.
Yeah. So pretty women in nice, beautiful dresses and dragons on the cover, and she sold the stew out of those books.
She did. She didn't double the rest of us, but she almost doubled us.
She sold over $2,000 worth of books at that convention.
Yeah. And she
That's
did
good.
have, and it was this, remember, this was a pop culture convention, not a book convention.
Yeah, so people were running around buying lightsabers and everything. So
Saturday, every female in the place was in cosplay, and most of the men.
yeah, it was one of those kids, everything. Yeah.
It was crazy. And so there's all kinds of different cons you go to, and Conuga was one. And I was going to talk a little bit tonight. I'm going to actually be doing an in-depth talk on this for a different Sudowrite class in June. But cons are coming a number of different flavors, and like Kevin said, this was a pop culture con. It did, however, have a writing track.
Yes.
And the tables were for the authors were all gathered together. They were all out in the main hall, and directly across from us were the 2 classrooms, or the 2 rooms they used for the panels, which was very convenient. And then when people got done, they would come out and talk to us. And while there weren't a ton of people in the panels, the people who were in them were very serious. And so they spent the weekend picking the brains of every writer there, including a very, very well-known lit RPG writer who runs his own company, and it's a 7-figure-a-year company. So they're very, very successful. So Um, anyway, it proved to be a major success. Although, as we closed down on Saturday night, Kevin and I were looking at each other, going, "I may not be back to this one." And then all of a sudden, Sunday came, and it's like, "Okay, yeah, I think I'll be back next year."
Yeah, everybody that wandered around thinking about it came back and bought books on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I did have somebody who bought the first book on Friday, came back to me Sunday and bought the next three in the trilogy. So there was that.
And one of the lessons here is you're going to see if you attend any convention, you're going to see people breaking down early. And very often you're going to sell a lot of stuff in the last few minutes.
Right. Yeah, don't do that. Don't be that person that wants to get out of there early when you missed out on selling three books. And for all you know, that guy's going to tell his high school class because he's a history teacher, you know, and you could have had 6 or 7 high school seniors going, "Oh, let me go on Kindle and look at this."
Yeah. I had so after Kevin, I went to a very small, and this is again these are lessons for you guys to absorb from our experiences. I went to a very small comic convention in a little town called Brownsville, Tennessee, 20,000 people. And it was within driving range of my home, so I didn't have any kind of expenses or anything as far as hotels and food and all that. But there also weren't going to be a whole lot of people there. And sales wise, the numbers weren't nearly as big as they were at some of the other cons. But net profit wise, they were great because I didn't have any expenses to deduct from that business.
Yeah, no hotel, no all that kind of stuff.
No food, very little gas. So as you're looking around in your own neighborhood and you do have things that you want to try and sell, do not dismiss the small ones.
Right.
That's where you might actually make some money.
And if there's not one around where you are, go to the library and ask them, have they thought of putting something together for local authors? You
It's
may
true.
find out they already have one, or they may say that's a great idea.
I actually have a something coming up next month, April 19th, at a local library that I found out about through a friend. She said, "Hey, Bill, they're doing this. They need 30 authors." So I inboxed them and said, "Okay." They have a waiting list of 48 authors trying to get in on that day.
Right.
And a lot of my friends are saying, "Hey, will you split your table with me?" It's like, no, no. It's only 6 feet wide, and I've got a lot of books. Sorry, you're my friend, but
Right.
And then Kevin had a fun experience.
Oh boy. Got to Tupelo Con on Friday, set up everything. Banners, tables looking great. We love Tupelo Con. It's a pop
And
culture
you had a
convention.
great spot.
It would have been the 4th year. Okay, full disclosure, Bill and I have a standing invite. So we have a standing invite to show up. They don't charge us for a table. They don't do any of those things. They just want us there. Because we draw some crowd. But anyhow, I had the table set up. Everything was good to go. And they come around and said, "Hey, stop setting up." And I'm like, "I'm finished." Within the hour, they canceled. The city of Tupelo canceled the convention because of tornadoes in Mississippi. Saw that on the news. And we had to pack it all up right then. And Mark Stallings and I, who's another author you should read, we haul but south, 4.5 hours south to a friend who lives in Mississippi, P.A. Pyatt. You should read him. Anyhow, we took off down south, and the nearest touchdowns were 70 miles north of us after we had gotten to Paul's house. So we just barely got out of all that. And there's people that had died and stuff in those tornadoes.
Yeah.
So we got out of there just in time, but that canceled the whole weekend on us. What are you going to do? You can't, the weather is the weather.
And it goes to show you that when you're doing cons, you never quite know exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
And then for Mid-South Con, which we just got done with, I'm going to call on our surprise guest and get theirs because they weren't a dealer at this. Were you, James?
I was not.
So go ahead and tell them your experiences, and then I'll.
Yeah, sure. So, due to Bill constantly talking about cons, I have started to go to some. Most have been like either Comic Cons or other pop culture-y kind of things, not necessarily focused on writing or anything like that. This is the first one on that path, and there were essentially nonstop, not nonstop, but very many panels to choose from to learn about whatever aspect of writing or publishing or idea making or anything that you can come up with, and had people who had done those things talking about it, which was incredibly helpful. And in most cases, you were able to ask whatever questions you want. There was plenty of time within the panels, or relatively enough time within the panels to ask questions. And even if there wasn't, all of them were very nice and were able to, or offered an invitation to talk to them at their own tables while they were not talking during a panel. And you could go back and forth between different panels that you wanted to listen to and talking to the actual authors that were selling stuff, being vendors, on top of talking through, like an hour-long class or a little bit less. But anyway, for me, it was incredibly helpful, and I learned a lot, and it was definitely worth doing, and something that I'm going to make sure I do again.
And one of the things, a couple of my impressions and things to add are, one, as you were standing there talking to various authors, and somebody would come up and they would talk to them about their books and stuff, you were listening in on how they were trying to sell their books.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
well, and you were getting those ideas in your head of, when I'm in their spot, how am I going to do this? What are some lines I can use to get people, interested? Because as you saw, um, people may be walking past your table, not even paying attention to you, but if you engage with them, it might turn out that you have some books they want to buy. And that happens constantly. Kevin and I just happen to be pretty good at it.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll bring people to the table. I promise you.
And others will wait for the person to show interest in them, or they'll be on their phone, or they'll be on their computer, or something like that. You do not do that.
Yeah, you want
Uh,
to catch people's eyes and look them in the eye.
Yeah, you're there to work. Like
Yeah,
that's your job at that point, is to sell your stuff, and you're not
right.
going to do that by not paying attention to the people who are trying to sell to.
And just so you guys know, it's not just selling your stuff or your merch or your books. You have to sell yourself. And when you sell yourself, they'll buy your product. So and some people, a lot of writers are very private people, and they shun society and they want to stay home. They don't want to deal with people. And I understand that, right? My youngest daughter says that people are stupid and she hates them. Um, that's her take on life. But she can also act. And so sometimes it's vaudeville. It's not your personality when you're at home, when you're writing, you're keeping quiet and you're sticking to yourself, friends and family, and that kind of thing. When you go to a convention and it's time to sell your books, it's time to act. And some of you may have taken acting in high school or college or whatever. It's time to act. It's vaudeville. Now you have to be outgoing, you know? And so it's just something to think about.
yeah, Kevin knows this very well, that when, generally speaking, by Sunday morning, when I get to a con, the only thing keeping me going is coffee.
Yeah.
I have a really, really big steel coffee thing I bring, and with a straw, and I drink it till probably 2 or 3 o'clock. And but it doesn't matter. When somebody comes to your table, you have to have the ability to act like they're the most important person in the world, because at that moment they are.
They are, absolutely.
And
They
you've
are.
got to be serious. You can't just, it can't be an act. You have to
Well,
really,
I mean, yeah, you have to just, yeah, personify you got to
but
be,
from an author standpoint, and from a, trying to go to cons to learn things and leverage other people. One of the panels we did, and James was there, is called "How to Weasel Your Way into a Shared Universe." And one of the reasons why you would want to do that is that um, Kevin and I combined have over 10,000 followers on Amazon. Now, Stacey Jones has probably got more than that by herself. Harper Wilde certainly probably does. But the point is that that's 10,000 people who, every time a book comes out with our name anywhere on it, are going to get an email saying, hey, guess what? There's a new book. You want to buy it?
Right.
We do have some duplication. So between us, it's probably 8,000 discrete people.
Right.
But it doesn't take a whole hot big percentage of those people to buy the book to, make everybody a little bit of money.
Right. And so the reason you weasel your way into a shared universe or get in on an anthology is you may be just starting out and you may have a couple hundred followers on Amazon, but then you're in a book with Bill and I. Well, our followers get the same email that your followers get. So now instead of 300 people letting somebody know you have a book out, now it's 10,300. So
Yeah.
that's
And
why you do that.
we were talking earlier about how do you reach readers and how do you get readers and all that and people on your mailing list. Well, that's one really good way to do it.
Yes.
Is
Yes.
write a really good story in an anthology that some people are going to read,
Right.
and they're probably going to read it and go, dang, I liked that. What else have they done?
Yep. They'll look your name up.
They'll look your name up.
That's why, some open calls, some open anthologies. Don't be afraid to submit to it.
And so then you go, well, how do you get into these things? Well, one way, I suggested James come to Mid-South Con, and he said, okay. He booked a plane and he was there.
Yep.
And
And and we talked about this earlier, Bill, if you want to bring it up, where we see him at the convention. We know he's serious about becoming an author.
Yep.
So if I have a slot in one of my books and I'm looking for somebody to get into an anthology, James is serious about doing this.
Yes, exactly. Exactly right. And so it's one of the ways that authors invite you to write in their universes. One of our friends who was there, Fred Hughes, has opened his universe to writers, okay, and other writers. And so we were talking about that, and I looked at him, and another guy who exactly the same thing James did. I got to know him through conventions, invited him to write for me. He did. Now he's got 24 short stories out there, and he's looking to write novels. And I looked at Fred and I said, Fred, you really ought to talk to Rick because Rick's a really good writer. And he was standing there. And, he was like, oh, okay. James posted a link to Team Ann Moore open calls. Is Team Ann Moore, is that Jamie, Kevin?
I don't know if he did it or if somebody grabbed the idea and did it.
Okay.
Yes,
So
it's an open call. It just tells you where some open calls are.
Yeah, and open calls are where, they're not going to guarantee to accept the story, but they are looking for stories. There's a Cthulhu anthology that actually pays money on the front end looking for authors. And so these are all things you learn when you go to cons. Now, James, did you go to dinner with the guys Saturday night?
I did.
My guess is if it's like every dinner I've ever been to with a bunch of authors, they just let things drop in the middle of a conversation that were like, oh my God, that's great.
Oh yeah, definitely. And everyone kind of riffing off of each other, different stories, different just experiences about everything. And it was, again, another great experience.
Yeah, which is what happened to Kevin and I at Connuga. We went to dinner with a whole bunch of other authors, and they're just, there is a little bit of, I'm trying to impress you with me. There's a little bit of one-upsmanship, but there's also but it's friendly, and there's also a little bit of shared knowledge. If somebody says something that you find useful, you want to contribute to the conversation and give them something back. And man, I tell you what, that hour we spent at City Cafe Diner was, for me, it was gold.
Yeah, it was worth the whole weekend.
It was. That's
So-
the same one, Kevin. That's Team Ann
Yeah.
Moore logo.
Yeah. Yeah, and Dan Bridgewater is one of the actual team members, so he was part of this, and he
Oh,
may have been part of that Ann Moore before. Let me go ahead and explain what Ann Moore means. If you've ever looked at an anthology and there's 4 or 5 names, and it's always names you recognize: Kevin J. Anderson, William Alan Webb, Kevin Steverson, and Joe Schnuffy, and then right below it says "and more."
Oh,
These
right.
are the authors who were and more. They didn't make the cover of anthologies, but they contributed several stories as it goes along. And eventually they become emeritus members where their actual name goes on a cover of an anthology. So So, but that's what and more means. If you ever see somebody with a pen that says and more, they were in an anthology. Their name wasn't on the front cover, but hey, they contributed one of the 12 stories in the book, and they're part of and more. So that's what that means.
And just so you guys know, Kevin and I already know at least 4 of these people personally.
Yes.
Brenna Bach, Dan Bridgewater.
Yep. And if you look on the emeritus members there on the left, you'll see people that they now, when they're in an anthology, their name's on one of the 4 or 5 up top. So, and you just scroll down and you'll see who they are. There's Rick, just who we talked about.
I just mentioned Rick as being the guy that I recommended to Fred Hughes.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells you something right there. This is the writing community is a lot. Oh, Jason Cordova. Jason is a good friend of ours.
Yeah, works at Bain.
He's written in my universe.
He wrote in mine.
And Charlie Cox. These are all people we see on a weekly basis.
And just so y'all know, Jason wrote a short story in my universe. And after reading that short story and it got published, I told him anytime he wants to write a novel, just let me know. And him and my son Nick put out 2 books, the last 2 books in the Salvage Title universe. Books 29 and 30 in my universe from a short story.
Yeah.
Wait, you only asked for 1 book? I thought it was 3.
They put out 2. He works for Bain too, so he's super busy, but they put out 2. My son Nick has written a trilogy. I am writing the 3rd book in their grouping. They have my name on their books too. So that becomes the trilogy.
So Jamie's a really good friend of ours. It is Jamie's group.
Yeah, okay.
Jamie's a really good friend of ours. And so we know all these folks, and it just goes to kind of show you how small the writing community really is when you kind of know people. There are other groups out there like Kevin and I, we all coalesced around Chris Kennedy Publishing, which is probably why you heard so much about it. But and James posted the Hooray Publishing Elder Things list, which pays semi-pro rates, meaning you get paid on the front end. You don't wait for royalties, and if it doesn't sell, you don't make anything. They pay you on the front end. Yeah. Are there any other questions before we kind of?
But yeah, you guys can find some open calls. And here's some advice. If you don't see an open call you want, if you guys write fantasy and you have a fantasy short story, 6 to 10,000 words, make it the best you can and have it waiting. One day there's going to be an open call for fantasy and you're like, hey, I have a story.
Yeah.
Same thing with military science fiction or whatever it might be.
So
post-apocalyptic.
I had a story. Kevin heard this story Saturday, so sorry about that. So did James. But so I was invited to write an anthology for alternate history. I wrote the story. And turned it in. It was ground warfare, and they were doing ground, naval, and air. And when I was talking to the editor about my story and the edits and all that kind of stuff, I just casually asked him, "So how are the others doing?" Well, the naval was already out, but he goes, "Yeah, we're missing a story for the air one. I'm not sure what we're going to do." Really? Did you know I had one that might fit? No, I didn't know that. So I sent it to him. 10 minutes later, hey, we'll take it. It's not exactly what we want, but we'll just pay you on the front end for it. Okay, sure, great. I had a story laying around. I'd done it. All I had to do was, clean it up a little bit, go back over the edits. But so there it was. And so Kevin's absolutely right. Finish your stuff, have it ready to go. Even if you don't think it's the best you can possibly do, you never know when that particular story is going to come back around, and you might be able to clean it up a little bit and submit it.
It's always surprise around the corner. You never know.
You never know. And right now is a challenging time to be a writer, especially a beginning writer, a new writer. There's no getting around the fact that there have been better times as far as sales. So anything you can do to give yourself a leg up is going to be very helpful.
Oh, any question on everything that Bill and Kevin talk and James? Or any question outside of that you like to ask that's the time to ask right now, as we are like 4 minutes to the hour.
If not, I'll tell you one more story.
Always open for a story.
Young lady, a young lady who was in last year I published an anthology, and she was in it. It was her very first ever published story anywhere. And it was alternate history, and it involved the White Ship. And if you're not familiar with that, I'm not going to go through the whole story. But so before this con, I told her at Mid South Con, she lives in Memphis. I told her, I said, so you need to order some copies of that from the publisher. So she did. She ordered 5, 4 to sell, 1 for herself. And she brought them to the con. Now, she didn't have a table. She didn't ask me to set up my table or anything. She was just going around talking about it to people. She sold all 4 copies. And she came up to me and she said, Bill, I made $80. What should I do? I said, write another story. But until that moment, she had never understood what it was like for somebody to pay you money to read something you wrote.
And then ask her to sign it for them.
Yep.
And that was her first signing of her books right there at that convention.
Yep. And so I had my copies too. I had 4 copies myself. Once she had sold hers, I put mine out. I sold out.
Yeah.
And one of them bought it because I was talking about the stories in the anthology and what they were all about. And I'm like, they're about this and they're about that. And then I mentioned, oh, yeah, and there's one about the White Ship. And she just perked up. She goes, wait, what? Really? Oh, my God, that's my favorite era of history. I got to have that. And I said, great. Now you've got to go seek out this lady and find her, get her to sign it. And so this woman went and sought her out. Her name's Arwen. And she sought Arwen out and asked her to sign it. And Arwen came back to me and she's like, oh my God, somebody asked me to sign their book. So it's why we all do this. And there really is a payoff as far as it's an ego stroke, yes, but it really is an ego stroke. And it really is something that, makes you feel good. And you kind of go, wow, somebody really liked that.
It is. I can tell you the first time someone asked me to sign my very, very, very first book, and the lady, she knew me from the city. I was teaching her children at school, and she sicked me out. I don't know how she found me, but she found me, and she actually called me or emailed me, and she says, can I go see you with my book? I bought your book, and I want you to sign it. And she came all the way to my house to sign my very, very first book, the small little book on meditation for women. That feels very good. I tell you that. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, and there's something in your brain when that happens that clicks over into a different kind of gear. Now it's no longer theoretical. Now it's not some guy on a Zoom call telling you what it's like. Now it's you experiencing what it's like.
Yeah. It's amazing feeling. It's the same thing that when you get your very, very first book inside your hands for the first time and it says, oh my goodness, I did it.
Yep. And then the motivation from that point forward is to write some more.
Mm-hmm.
So one day you have your own table and you start learning to talk to people about it and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So we are on the hour. I put up on the screen tomorrow there is classes. Keeping on going on memoir writing with me, Manon. We're going to be speaking about Elvis Presley tomorrow to give you example on how to learn to write with Sudowrite some memoir. Today we had the start of it and we're kind of having a bit of fun. There's a lot of information on how to write memoirs. So if you want to come tomorrow at 2 p.m. Toronto time, we had a lot of problem with the time zone and we are very sorry about that. But please come in. We're going to have some fun in learning how to do memoir. In the meantime, I want to say thank you so much to William, Kevin, and James for being with me, and John, Chris, also. We learn always a lot with you, and I guess we'll see you all again next month. Or is there something which might stop you? Is there a con or something which going to happen in April?
Well,
You trip over them once you start looking for cons.
yeah,
everywhere.
no, but Mondays are generally speaking fine for me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm good Mondays.
On Mondays?
Yeah, Mondays are always good because even if there is a convention, we're back home.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll see how that goes. And normally, kind of put everything in 1 week stretch, and after that, I'm writing. I'm not nonstop writing. And as you can see, the book I put up already for the month of March and April. So any last question for our fantastic panel today? Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording and say thank you so much. Don't forget to leave a small feedback. Give us questions for April, things that you would like us to talk about. And trust me, we'll go find the answer for you. This is what we love doing, helping new author, experienced author. And if you have anything that you like to share with us, bring it on also. We're always looking for that. So leave that in the feedback you're going to receive by email from Sudowrite, or seek me out in Discord. And if not, seek out one of our panelists and they will let me know and we will add it to our next session. On that, I wish you everyone a beautiful evening and keep on writing.
Oh, hear the whispers of the wind so free through the leaves of the ancient tree, guiding hearts with a gentle plea. To the brave and bold, come follow me. With a sigh and a breeze, the wind does sing. Secrets of courage it will bring. Through the forests and the night, it leads the heroes with its light. Over hills and valleys wide, the wind will be your faithful guide. Through shadows deep where fears reside, with the wind, let your spirit glide. With a sigh and a breeze, the wind does sing. Secrets of courage it will bring. Through the forests and the night, it leads the heroes with its light. Listen close, oh valiant heart. The wind song is where you start. In its melody you'll find your part. The path through darkness, a hero's chart. To the cave of shadows you must go, where the winds of courage always blow. With every step let your valor grow. Follow the song and light will show. With a sigh and a breeze, the wind does sing. Secrets of courage it will bring. Through the forests and the night, it leads the heroes with its light. So heed the wind's enchanting song. With its guidance you'll be strong. For in its tune you'll find